Hi y'all, Samantha Keeler, also known as One Tough Chick, coming to you this afternoon. I thank whoever's joining me, wherever you're joining me from, whatever time of day it might be. It's afternoon for me, and today I'm going to talk to you about service dogs. The difference between a service dog and an emotional support animal, the rules regarding such animals, the protections in place for them, the difference between an emotional support animal and a service dog, uh, and just kind of the basic ins and outs of those things. And of course, as you have questions, if I don't cover something as deeply as you would like for me to, please do let me know in the comments, and I will seek to address that. Moving forward, I have a service dog. Her name is Jane. She is my second service dog. As I covered in my story uh, about my chronic pain journey, I lost my original service dog September 6th of 2022. And that was extremely traumatic for me. I still have not yet recovered. But, and this is something that even my mother has called me to task for, why I got Jane so quickly after I lost Ember. And that breaks down to the fact that it can take over a year to train a new service dog. And with my physical condition and my physical issues, if I had waited even a month, that would have delayed me being able to continue on with normal life. Because what my service dog does for me, primarily, their primary function is to help me with my mobility. Now, Ember couldn't do that much for me as far as mobility was concerned because she was only 30 pounds. However, she did a lot for me even though she was only 30 pounds. She figured out how to make me stop if I was about to exceed what my body could do, and how to make me go sit down. Yeah, 30-pound dog did that. Figured it out. Mastered it. Did it for 13 years. And she was quite successful at it. She knew how to alert me to spikes in my pain level. Because to live with chronic pain, you have to learn to block it out to a certain degree. I learned to do it too well. I got to the point where I can't always tell if my pain level is rising. And so what I did before I got Ember was I was constantly landing myself in bed for 2 or 3 days, up to a week, because I would miss the signs that I was exceeding my body's limitations. And I was hurting myself by accident. I wasn't doing it on purpose. I didn't want to do it because being stuck in bed for a week sucks. And I didn't know how to stop. I didn't know how to make it stop. And I was talking to my friends that had been in my life for a long time. They knew what my challenges were. They saw day in and day out. They were there from the beginning of my chronic pain journey. They knew what I struggled with. And one of my friends one day said, well, why don't you get a service dog to help alert you to your pain level and to help you when you run into these problems. And I hadn't realized that service dogs could do that. I knew they helped blind people. I knew that they could do other stuff, but it never really occurred to me that a service dog could help with my mobility problems and could actually solve the problems that I had. And so I thought about it, and at the time I had Bandit, and he was ideal. He was the ideal size, he was the ideal temperament. He learned that the universe wasn't evil after all, and that it was kind of fun, and he liked it. And so I started training him, and then he turned into being my dad's unofficial service dog. So I needed to find one for me. Well, it wasn't until after Dad passed away that I found my service dog, Ember. And she was everything that I needed at the time. But over 13 years, I got to the point where I needed more. And so I needed a larger dog. But I was not going to get a new service dog while Ember was still alive. She would not have allowed that. So I had to wait. And I understand that my mom didn't understand the timing of it, and she didn't really grasp why. But my needs are such that going without was not an option. And so 3 days after I lost Ember, I found Jane. And I wasn't even seriously looking at that time. I wasn't trying to find a new service dog. I wasn't trying it. I was just seeing what there was, what was out there, what might work. And I was just dinking around looking. And then I found Jane, and she was exactly what I needed. She was going to be the exact size that I needed to be able to do mobility work. A dog needs to be at least 50 pounds. And she is, I believe now she's about 55 pounds. And that's the perfect size for me. She's not too big, and she's also small enough that if I needed to, I could transport her one way or another to get her to the vet if she could not walk herself. I couldn't do it more than once, but I could do it. Oh, pardon me. My asthma's acting up today. And I think one of the kids that I watch, that I nanny for, has given me her cold. Yay! So when you've got asthma and you've got a cold, that can turn into some ugly shit. But we're not going to get into that. That's a subject for a different video. And I will struggle through this, and we will we'll make this work. But yeah, Jane, she's the perfect size for me, for what I need her to do. And mostly what she does is she pulls to a certain level where she evens out my gait. And she helps me balance and even out my stride. She also will alert me to blood sugar spikes. She will also alert me to asthma attacks that are pending, because she can hear the early signs of an asthma attack before I start to notice the early signs. Service dogs are really quite remarkable creatures. And I mean, if you need one, you need one. And they change your life in such a huge way. Now, here's the thing about service dogs, and here's where I'm getting into the difference between service dogs and emotional support animals, ESAs. A service dog must be a dog. Cannot be a cat, cannot be a horse, must be a dog. And the rules that service dogs have to follow, have to abide by, have to be able to pass. They cannot be reactive to people, they cannot be reactive to other animals, they cannot be reactive to anything in any way. And I'm at a point in Jane's training where I'm having to train her out of reactivity. And that's limiting what I can do with her at this time. Because she reacts inappropriately. And for her to do that in a grocery store or in a craft store or even in the parking lot of one of these places would be detrimental to me, to her, to the chronic condition community as a whole. Because if your dog is not very well trained, if they do not have full obedience, I mean, we're talking a very, very high standard that they have to meet, then it makes the whole community look bad. And the people that are trying to pass their dog off as a service animal when they do not have the training and they are just a pet, it damages. Don't do that. Don't do that, because that puts me at risk. That puts people like me at risk. That puts dogs like Jane and like Ember was at risk. And that will cause businesses to try to limit my access and the access of people like me who need a service dog and who have a dog for legitimate reasons as a service dog. It makes those businesses react negatively when you say, oh, this is my service dog. Even when you have the vest on, even when you have everything that you need to have. And actually, the primary thing you need to have for a legitimate formal service dog is a prescription from your doctor saying your doctor believes you need this, agrees with you that you need this, and under the law, a service dog is a living piece of medical equipment. That's not how handlers view them, people like me. That's not how I view them. But by the law that governs and rules service dogs, Jane is a piece of live medical equipment, which means that under the law, if I can take my inhaler or my cane or a wheelchair, oxygen tank, whatever, if I can take those pieces of inanimate if I can take those pieces of inanimate medical equipment in, Jane should be able to go too. Because she does alert me to problems like this. Because she does alert me to my blood sugar spiking or crashing. Because she does help me with my mobility. Legitimately one of the cashiers at a grocery store that I regularly go to commented on the difference between me with Jane and me without Jane, because she's seen both. Without Jane, I struggle to walk. I often have to use the power cards. And I just have an overall more challenging time. With Jane, I do not struggle to walk because she balances me out, both my balance and my gait. And she gives me the confidence to know that if I end up having a problem, she will help me. Literally, the challenge about taking her into stores and stuff like that right now is she does not have the full control over her behavior that I need her to have. She knows how to alert me to problems. She knows how to recognize when I am having a problem. But she still needs to learn that she sees another dog, she's not allowed to react. She sees another human, she's not allowed to react. And she's learning that. It takes time. It's like teaching a human child. And a lot of teaching a service dog how to behave appropriately is like teaching a human child. Because you are expecting them to go places that dogs don't normally get to go. That people only get to go. And so that takes a higher level of training, and it takes them time to learn to understand what you need from them. And there are people that don't understand service animals. And I've run into a few. And this is one of my biggest pet peeves about businesses in general, is they do not teach their workers that service dogs are allowed to go anywhere the handler can go. And I've run into this at other grocery stores. The store that my mom typically shops at, because she does not live in the same area of Kansas City that I do. She lives in South Kansas City. I live in Belton. And so the grocery store that's near her is a little bit less down to earth. Her neighborhood is a little bit more well off than mine. And so a lot of the people there are a little bit more, I don't know how to put this politely, but a little bit more stuck up. And I actually had a cashier in the grocery store she typically uses tell me, I don't do dogs. She's a service dog. She's allowed to be here. And yeah, it's like businesses need to teach their employees about service dogs and what service dogs are allowed to do. Because her reaction was not acceptable. And so yeah, that's one of my biggest pet peeves. But with service dogs in general, that's why they have to conform to these higher standards that pet dogs don't have to conform to. Because your pet dog is typically never going to go into a grocery store, typically never going to go into Walmart or a craft store, unless they're like these teensy little handbag dogs. And I know some handbag dogs that should not go into such places either. But that doesn't typically stop their owners. But that's another issue. So yeah, service dogs, they are living medical equipment. Also, as far as what you are required to tell an establishment, a business, a hotel, uh, a restaurant, any place that a dog typically would not be allowed to go unless they're a service dog. Uh, the only thing you're required to tell them is that yes, your dog is a service dog, and yes, they are specifically trained to help you manage a condition. They are not allowed to ask what condition they are trained to help you with. They are not allowed to ask anything else. They can ask, is this a service dog? And is it trained to help you with a specific condition? That's it. You do not have to disclose anything else. You technically aren't even required to show your prescription for your service dog. Do not let a business tell you that you must. You do not have to. And I will put links to resources in the description for this video, so that you can look up that stuff for yourself. I will put information on both service dogs and ESAs, links, descriptions, stuff like that, down in the description of this video. That way you have all of that you need to inform yourself. I do not expect you to go by just what I say. In fact, I never want you to go just by what I say. Go inform yourself. But what I'm telling you is a jumping off point, a place to begin researching if this is a thing for you. Also, with service dogs, because they are working animals, they are not pets. Which means if you live in an apartment building that does not allow pets, they must allow your service dog to be there. They are not a pet. Do not allow any rental place. That's rental house, that's trailer parks, apartment buildings, anywhere. Even hotels. They cannot tell you you cannot have your service dog because they are not pets. They are working animals. And they are living medical equipment, meaning you must be able to have access. And this is very important. This also is a thing for emotional support animals, therapy animals. If you have a prescribed therapy animal, and this is where therapy animals are different, ESAs, they're different in this regard, because sometimes you do have to show your prescription to prove that your cat, even your gerbil, is an ESA. And that's the other difference, is an ESA can be any animal. It can be a cat, it can be a dog, it can be a snake, it can be a gerbil, a guinea pig, whatever. It's what you need, that you find soothing, that you find calming. And again, if you're moving to an apartment complex or a trailer park or whatever, your ESA is allowed to be there by law. It's in the Fair Housing Act. And I will provide that specific information in case you need it. Also regarding ESAs, this is where they're limited. They are not allowed to go into stores. Sometimes they're not allowed to go into hotels. um, because they are not living medical equipment. They are companion animals that emotionally support you. Um, and yeah, they do get some special treatment, but they do not get near as much special treatment as service dogs do. Um, as far as other things regarding ESAs, I covered about the. Hang on, I got a little lost in my head there. Um, I think I've covered everything important about ESAs. The big difference is they are not considered living medical equipment, and they do not get to go into grocery stores or other places, business establishments. Uh, but they are allowed to live in your home with you, even in housing that does not allow pets, because these are specialized creatures. Yeah, they're not service animals. They have not been trained to help you with a specific condition or problem, but they do help you self-soothe. One of my best friends uh, is bipolar, and she's actually on her second ESA feline, and uh, losing her first ESA feline was extremely traumatic for her because that cat had helped her through some very, very terrible times. When she was beginning to get a grip on what being bipolar was for her, when she was learning that it didn't matter how good she felt or if she felt like she was on track with her mental health and with her therapies and all of that, it didn't matter. She needed to take her meds every day, all of the time, regardless. And this is a struggle that a lot of bipolar people go through. So if you're bipolar and this is a struggle that you have fought with, you are not alone. It is not abnormal. It is completely normal. And I know a lot of bipolar people who have ESAs, and they do help a lot with those feelings of loneliness, with the feelings that you don't belong anywhere, that they are extremely helpful. And I know Izzy helped my friend out a lot during those early years. When I first met her and when she was going through those struggles, she needed that cat so bad. And I watched that cat when she couldn't take her with her. And I took care of her. I stopped in. I fed the cat. I hung out with her. I paid attention to her. I gave her her scritchins. Even her ice cream, yes. My friend does give her ESA cats ice cream because, well, there's some that's specialized for cats. And they like it. And as long as you're careful with it and you don't feed a whole lot at a time, you can get away with it, depending on your cat's gut biome. And I'm not going to go into feline physical health and whether it's a good idea to feed your cat dairy or not. Not going there. And don't hate on me in the comments, please. But this is something that my friend felt was necessary, and the cat liked it, and the cat didn't have any problems from it, so it didn't hurt anything. And then Izzy passed away some, I want to say 5 or 6 years ago. And she got her current ESA cat. And I mean, the difference between Joy without an ESA and Joy with an ESA, very, very massive difference. And yeah, she does great. And she's doing so much better than I've ever seen her. And I am so proud of her. And if she had not had an ESA, she would not be where she is. Yeah, I played a part, but that I wasn't there every single day, 24/7, but that cat was. And so, yeah, if you think that your mental health would benefit from having an ESA, talk to your therapist, talk to your doctor. Get them on board with you. If you see a psychiatrist who prescribes your psych meds, if you're bipolar, if you're monopolar, if you're like me and you have major depression and anxiety problems, whoever it is that prescribes your psych drugs, talk to them. Get them on board with you. Get them to say, yes, you need this animal. This animal helps with your mental health. And you must have this animal for your mental well-being. Once you get that written down on a piece of paper, no place of dwelling can deny you your ESA. And as far as there's one more aspect of service dogs that I'm going to cover, and that is the public. The way that the public behaves towards service dogs is and can be a huge problem. And it can be a huge detriment to the handler. Because I've seen it time and again. I had huge problems with it with Ember. People would see her, even with her service dog harness on, she would be having her service dog vest on. I would have the leash that said service dog, do not touch, do not approach. And people would go, oh, doggy, and come up and try to pet her. Of course, Ember was smart. She knew this was not allowed. So she'd go and stand behind me and let me deal with the people. Jane is learning that this is something that we do. We do not allow strangers to approach us in public. If we're at the dog park, that's one thing. If we're at home, that's one thing. But out in public, at a grocery store, in some random parking lot, it is not okay for strangers to approach us. And she is learning this. And, I mean, one thing that is really, really a problem, I have not particularly myself had this problem, but I've seen it reported by other service dog handlers when they take their animals out in public. Even if adults won't approach you or approach your dog, they will send their children to approach your dog. Go say hi to the doggy. Look, there's a doggy. Go say hi to the doggy. No, never do that. Never allow anyone to do that. I don't care if you're against correcting someone else's child. If the adult responsible for that child is not correcting the child, you kind of have to. Because that's not okay. That puts you at risk. That puts me at risk. That puts my dog at risk. If my dog is distracted, she will potentially miss a sign that I am going to have a problem. And it won't be caught until I am actually having a problem. When it's easier to catch blood sugar drops when they are very first starting, when it's easier to catch blood sugar spikes when they are very first starting, so that you can get ahead of it. Pain spikes, same thing. If you can get ahead of it, it's a lot better. But if Jane's distracted, that is a huge potential problem and a huge potential liability for me. Because the liability is I could get hurt bad. I could get really sick in public where nobody necessarily knows what problems I have. Yes, I do carry cards in my wallet to alert people to if I've passed out from low or high blood sugar, or because I'm autistic and I also have sensory processing issues, and one of those relates to tactile sensory input so far as pain. There's a thing called situational mutism, and a high enough pain level will cause me to go into situational mutism, where I cannot speak and I cannot communicate. So if you're watching this and you are a member of the general public, don't necessarily have a service dog, don't necessarily have interest in having a service dog, don't necessarily have family or friends that have service dogs, be mindful of this, please. Because I am not exaggerating that this puts the handler of a service dog in harm's way when you behave this way towards a service animal. This puts the handler at risk. Do not do it. Because you can cause that handler to have an extreme problem that you have no concept of what may be happening or what you may be causing for them. Don't approach a service dog unless you have permission from the handler. Don't pet a service dog unless you have permission from the handler. Just don't. Don't let your kids, because it's that important and it's that serious. And I think that's all I have for you today. I think that's where I'm going to leave this. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out in the comments. If you have any concerns or suggestions about further videos regarding this or regarding other things as far as physical disabilities, uh, chronic conditions, chronic pain conditions, anything like that, please feel free to reach out in the comments. I do read comments when people make them. And I will do my best to answer your questions and answer your concerns. And thanks for watching. And if you could please like and subscribe, that does help. Especially since I do not have very many subscribers at all right now. If we can get these videos pushed out to a wider audience, that would be great. And I would be very thankful for that. Thank you, my beautiful people. I love y'all.